Yesterday, I was lucky enough to have a fan send me over a beta code for Marvel's Avengers. I wasn't going to get to play this until the open beta because my debit card was being charged fraudulent charges, so I'm waiting for my new card. My bank account's currently frozen. I wasn't able to pre-order the game for the beta, but again, I'm very grateful to this fan who had an extra code that he had no use for, so he sent it my way. I was able to stream about an hour of the game yesterday, and then I played another hour off stream. And I wanted to give some very honest thoughts on what I've experienced in this so far, and I just want to make it very clear, this is not a review of Marvel's Avengers, as I've not played the full game yet. There are, I'm sure, tons of features and story elements that I have not yet seen, and even when it comes to the beta, I mean, I only played 2 hours, but I do feel that I have a pretty firm grasp on what this game has to offer, and so this, rather than being an objective review of the beta or the game, this is a review of my experience playing the Marvel's Avengers beta. And if you followed my channel long enough, you know that I had some concerns with the marketing. I didn't think that this game was marketed particularly well. After playing the game, I think that this game did a lot of things far better than the marketing gave it credit for. I also think that there are issues that I still have concerns about when it comes to the full game. I guess I'll start with those. My biggest issue is truthfully with the dialogue. The dialogue in this game is horrible, particularly from the protagonist, Miss Marvel. It's too bad because she is actually a really good character. I think that she's actually a really good choice to be the protagonist. She is a character who's a fan of the Avengers, and you know she's trying to bring this group back together, and it actually is a pretty good mirror for us as the fans playing with these characters that we love so much, and we kind of feel like we're part of bringing them back together. So I think that she's a great player character. The problem is her dialogue is just so awful, and it's not the voice actress's fault, it's just the frequency in which she delivers lines, and the quality of the dialogue is just not good. It is really cringy, it's really uncomfortable. There's this scene where you're playing as Bruce Banner, and you're walking through the woods with her, and it kind of feels like a Walmart The Last of Us moment. But in that 2 minutes, I feel like Ms. Marvel probably has more lines of dialogue than Ellie has in the entirety of The Last of Us. So I don't know, there is that. And the mood swings, it's inconsistent. I feel like they were really trying to make us feel connected to this character, but anyone who knows, you know, how that works, you can't just have a character cry in front of us and immediately have us feel attached to them. Miss Marvel comes off as very annoying because 1 second she's crying, then she's giggling, then she's cringing, and she's emoting way too much, way too frequently, way too cringy. I wasn't a fan of that. Other characters appear to have this issue as well. For example, Thor has a line early on in the game where he says, like, "Lucky for you, I am mighty." And it's just really uncomfortable. So that is kind of an issue. When it comes to the gameplay, I actually was a big fan of 8A. I thought it looked really good. I thought it played really well. I thought that the destructible environments were really fun to play through. It almost felt like I was playing through an Uncharted mission with Avengers characters. And it was cool that each character played differently from one another. Each one, I think, has a really great basis for game mechanics. Some of them, I don't know if they'll retain that purity throughout the course of the game, as I'll get to with Hulk in just a minute. But in that opening mission, it was a good pace. I liked switching between the characters. Each one had a different objective kind of throughout the thing. Hulk was smashing through stuff. Captain America was fighting people on the Chimera, I think is what it's called. Iron Man was kind of flying around the Golden Gate Bridge. Thor was just like kind of stomping around the Golden Gate Bridge, beating people up with his hammer. So it was fun to have that variety. Black Widow had a cool boss battle with Taskmaster. And this mission just felt very polished, very refined, and very fun. And if every mission in the game can keep that up, then I think I'll really enjoy the story. The problem is that as soon as we got to the next mission, you know, not only do we have Miss Marvel's obnoxious dialogue now, but playing as Hulk, for me, already kind of feels old. And we're talking, I mean, I've only been playing the game for about an hour. I've only been playing exclusively as Hulk for like 30 minutes, and already I was kind of over it, ready to switch to a different character. And quite honestly, I just do not like the combat in this game. The mechanics themselves are fun, the combat mechanics are cool, but the enemy types, the AI, are pretty awful, and there's just no variety. It became very much a repetitive mess where I was just going from room to room, and the level design is fine. It doesn't have the same attention to detail as other AAA superhero games in recent years, but it looks good enough. Again, it's not like some cutting-edge graphical masterpiece, but it looks good for what it is. But there's nothing to do. You go from room to room and you fight about 50 robots who all behave exactly the same. Some of them are very annoying. For example, enemies with shields, you have to do a charged heavy attack to break their shields, but when you're charging up a heavy attack, you'll get hit by some other robot and it breaks your charge, and it just becomes very frustrating. And generally, these waves of robots are so big, and there's such a giant multitude of these enemy types that you'll get lost and confused as to what's going on, who's hitting you, where's the attacks coming from. It just becomes very... I don't even know what the issue is. I don't know if it's with the camera distance from the character. I don't know if it's just the amount of enemies, but I got very tired because it was just so repetitive, just fighting the same robots over and over and over again in very samey looking environments. And after seeing like the Once an Avenger mission from the War Table, I'm concerned that this is going to pretty much make up the majority of the story. Now, I do like the idea of the story in which the Avengers have been outlawed and you're kind of trying to bring them back one by one as Miss Marvel. And hopefully when the whole team's together, Miss Marvel's dialogue will maybe be balanced out with some of those other Avengers more. Maybe she'll grow on us as she matures a little bit throughout the story. And I do think that MODOK is an interesting choice for the villain. There are a lot of things about this story that I think show promise. I'm just very concerned about the mission structure and the level structure. And I would think that perhaps if this game had been marketed more as the multiplayer Avengers game with a single-player campaign attached to it that, maybe didn't get quite as much attention, then I think that people would have been more interested in this game. And that's pretty much what it is. But the problem is that the multiplayer, from what I've heard, I didn't really get too much into it, doesn't appear to be a very refined experience on its own either. It feels very grindy, and that there's a lot of leveling up that you have to do. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like the flow of the game was very good. It feels very much like a Destiny game. A lot of the enemies are bullet sponges, and once again, they're all just robots. And even when I got to the second boss battle in the game, which is Abomination versus Hulk, that should be a really fun boss battle. But once again, I just felt like I was button mashing. And the thing is, this whole thing is very serviceable. There's fun to be had, and I've seen a lot of people give it like a straight 10 out of 10. They've loved their time with it. And for people who have just really wanted to play as Captain America or Thor or Hulk, this game I think will allow them to do that. It gives you a good voice actor who's voicing the character. It gives you some fun abilities to play around with, some fun missions that you can play with your friends. So for hardcore Marvel fans and even people who are just fans of this style of game, it's going to do wonders for you. I think it's going to be great. I do think that the game, the launch title, the final launch game will be good. And then I think the post-launch content will only improve it. And I think, within the next few years, we'll see a product that is actually very good. In terms of the campaign, I think it'll be a bit repetitive. And I don't know. I, once again, think the concept is great. I just think that the dialogue is kind of bad. But we'll see what happens. I'm not 100% sold on this thing yet. But from the time that I spent with it, I'd give it about a 7 out of 10. It works very well, and I will say that the game is good. It looks good, it plays good, it's fun. With that said, it just doesn't surpass my expectations. It didn't have any elements that I, was hoping it would improve upon, and it didn't do much more than I was expecting from the marketing. The marketing really leveled my expectations into thinking that this would be kind of just a Destiny looter game, and that's pretty much what it is, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And for just a fun Avengers game that the community can play together and that has a good, decent story to play through with good voice acting, that's great. It does what it needs to do. However, I just think that it could have been something more, and that's why I can't give it a higher score. And just because some of those clunky elements still exist that I was concerned about, I just can't get it higher than a 7 out of 10. Like, I don't know if I've said this already, but there were times I was tempted to give it a 6 out of 10, times I was tempted to give it an 8 out of 10. It's just kind of all over the place. I hope that the launch title, so the game that launches, will have a little bit more to it. I hope that the story really draws me in. But until then, I have very mediocre expectations for the game. I'm expecting to have a lot of hours of fun with it. So don't get me wrong, I'm excited for the game, but I do feel that it is about a 7 out of 10. So hopefully the final game is an 8 out of 10, and then who knows, maybe some of that post-launch content could even push it to an 8.5 out of 10. So we'll see what ends up happening. I really hope that I enjoy it. Thanks you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And in the comments, let me know if you had a chance to play the Avengers beta and let me know what you guys thought of it. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.